All right, cool. We are officially recording, and let's see here. And there we go. We should be sharing screen or my screen now. All right. Well, let's see here. We got a big week of stuff. So what I'll do to kick things off is kind of go over the game plan for what's cooking this week. So inside of the content area, I just updated our week here for us. So the big thing is continuing to work on the book. But I've got a number of resources that I want to take you guys through that I think will potentially help you guys out. One thing that I took out of the class resource area, it actually still exists there, but it's been there, but I haven't really talked about it with you guys. I've got this PDF doc here that I'll show you guys. It's actually chapter 1 from the textbook, but it does a really nice job of breaking down just all of the different typographical, like the anatomy basically of type, like the typographical terms for basically everything. So that'll be a good resource for us to review today, because I think that, depending on what you're planning on doing in your book, if you've got any descriptive pages, that will certainly help. I also put a link in for a link to an web article on 12 famous typographers that you need to know. I believe that both of the typographers, I just got off a sneeze, excuse me. I believe that both of the typographers that you and Cam chose are both represented in there. So it could be a good place of information if you happen to need more. I know when we looked at yours last week, Kelly, I don't really necessarily feel like you needed more, but as you're designing it, if you feel like you need an extra page of information, you can certainly turn to that. We'll also look today at 4 more type sample books. They're not really what I would call a type specimen book per se, but there are certainly many pages throughout there that I think could certainly be used within a type specimen book. So they're very well designed. So we'll walk through those as well. We'll kind of run through that list of stuff after we have taken a look at the concept work that you guys have done for your type specimen books. Today, I want to take a look at the first 8 pages. And I know that you had actually begun yours last week and we're looking really good, although I think some of the layouts still obviously needed some tweaking. But I know that you had a really good jump start on that. So I'm looking forward to what you put together. And yeah, that's what we'll do to kick things off here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually jump back over to the home page real quick and open up our Google Drive so I can pull up those projects. Let's get into a list view here. Here we go. Okay, cool. Kelly's, it's probably this one, I'm guessing, right? Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, it's the second one.
Cool. I was going to download it. We'll see how it looks here. Although actually, I think I am still going to download it because then I can view it, the pages side by side rather than. Okay, let's try this again here. Oh, my control click's not working. Huh. Here, let's just try this. Let's see. Okay, so let's give this a run through. I mean, right off the bat, and I think this is something that you were doing last week as well, but right off the bat, I definitely appreciate the different styles that you use, like the different weights and variations that you use to create the cover. I think that's just a fantastic way to start this thing out. Now let's see, I should be able to Oh, actually, awesome. You already set this up to view in spreads. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm giving this a quick read through here. So Claude Garamond was a French type designer, publisher, and punch cutter based in Paris. He was born in Paris, France in 1940 or 1480 and died later in the year 1561. So let's see, there's no listed or exact date of birth and death. Oh, interesting. Okay. So Garamond was one of the first punch cutters to work independently of printers. His Roman fonts, cut from the 1531 onwards, surpassed the best existing Romans in grace and clarity, and influenced European punch cutters for 150 years. His Greek typeset pattern for Greek printing until, let's see, his Greek typeset, set the pattern for Greek printing until the early 19th century. Okay, cool. So these rounded shapes that you are using here, Kelly, I think maybe something to consider is on the cover. Maybe consider instead of like this, like the, I guess just the lines that you have here, maybe consider introducing those rounded forms here on the cover as well, potentially. And I do like the rounded nature of those. I think that, you know, that obviously it mirrors the sort of rounded serifs that that are present within Garamond. Now, something that you can try, I don't know if this will work, but you can certainly try is maybe, and actually it's probably not going to work for a form like this. What I was going to suggest is anytime that we need like a little sort of, you know, rounded bubble like this, I'm almost wondering if we could like blow up like a, you know, portion of a letter, you know, whether it's, I don't know, like this here for a longer one. You know, there's obviously lots of forms within these letters, but I don't necessarily know that that will work for something like this. I mean, maybe depending on like, it might have to actually come up from the bottom possibly as well. I guess it depends, but something just to perhaps maybe consider. It could even be the, you know, like taking like the negative shape of the bowl on, let's say, a G or a B, and maybe using that as the shape. It's just, I think, an opportunity to perhaps, you know, continue to pull from the actual type. Give it a shot here on like this homepage or homepage on this on this opening page and see if it's something that you think is worth pursuing. I think you'll know right away whether or not it's something you want to pursue or not after you've tried it on a few of these forms. If it ends up just not working, I get it, no worries. But I think, again, I think that'd be an awesome way to really kind of bring some of those other typographical forms into like the whole book, which could be really wild. Cool. I do like the little bullet essentially that you're using here. I would say in some cases, you may just have to just be aware of the alignment on them. Like this one I like very much. I do feel like this lines up pretty well with the edge of the paragraph. This guy here sticks over just a touch. But I definitely like that element. I think if you were to just put like an extra space in here and bump that over, oops, let me head back. That'll give you the room that you need to kind of bump this over. But again, I'm a big fan of these, the layouts that you've got here. I very much like the way that this wraps around. There may be an opportunity for us to take the word often and drop it down. I think there's enough room here, and that will probably create a little bit more of a uniform curve. And I'm really splitting hairs with that, but it's very well done, and I think that there's the opportunity there. We also want to be careful because right here is a widow, so that's something we take care of. Now that could be done by either. Looks like this is fairly tight right here. You might be able to, at the very least, drop the word "and" down below and just loosen up the kerning, or sort of add a little extra kerning in between each one of these items that you've got the comma between. So I think that there's a couple of solutions to get where we need to there. Okay, let's see. I'm going to read through this then as well. So Garamond was a group of many serif typefaces named for the 16th century Parisian engraver Claude Garamond, generally spelled as Garamond in his lifetime. Garamond style typefaces are popular and particularly often used for book printing and body text. Its complete range of variations in design, including Roman, italics, bold, expand, condensed, and others. And that's actually cool. I did not realize that. I didn't know that Garamond had expanded and condensed versions available. That's kind of wild. Garamond's types followed the model of an influential typeface cutter cut for Venetian print. Aldous, not even gonna try and pronounce Aldous' last name there because I will butcher it. But his punch cutter, Francisco, again, I'm gonna just avoid these last names, in 1495, and are now what's called the old style of serif letter design. Letters with relatively organic structure resembling handwritten with pen, but slightly more structured, upright design. In particular, many Garamond revivals of the early 20th century are actually based on the work of a later punch cutter, Jean Janon, whose noticeably different work was for some years misattributed to Garamond. The most common digital font named Garamond is Monotype Garamond, developed in the early 20s and bundled with many Microsoft products. It is a revival of Janon's work. This is a cool layout too. I very much like that you're breaking up like these bodies of type with some letter forms. I think what would be a really nice touch on like these letters, and potentially, Kelly, even like maybe here, maybe in an instance like off to the side here, you'll notice in many type specimen books that when you see variations of type, that it's listed like what that size and what that weight is. So at some point in the book, if the headers are all the same, at some point, could be on the very first page with the header, but somewhere, I'd love to see sort of off to the side in a very, very small, probably 12 or 10 point type. Tell us what weight of that font is and what size in points that it is. Same thing for your body copy. Somewhere in here, designate that for us. That's a big part of a type specimen book, is to basically classify or let us know like what what we're seeing, like what again, size and weight wise. Let's see. So the Garamond typeface we know is today has many variations, designed by different font designers inspired by the original punch cuts designed by Claude Garamond in the 16th century. Claude Garamond is a unique style of designing type that did not exactly resemble a scribe's handwriting, rather a typeface that was typeface which, even though boasted a calligraphous feel, was easier to use with printing presses. Claude Garamond's typefaces were used in printing of many books in Roman and Latin. He was once commissioned to design a typeface solely for the purpose of printing books in Greek. The typeface was called Grec du Roi, possibly, and was used in the printing of books by the Greek government. Okay, very cool. Yeah, again, I think here, let's definitely make sure that we align the bullet point up. Or, again, I'm seeing it here too. So if that's what you want to do stylistically, Kelly, I'm totally cool with that. But then let's make sure, I suppose it was on another page. Yeah, on this one, let's then bump it out a little bit. So basically, we just want them all to essentially have like the exact same spacing, whether you go out with it a little bit or whether you go even with it. I'll support you either way, but we just want to stay consistent. Now, I am definitely okay with this one sticking out further because it's a centered block of type. So no worries there at all, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. Okay. Cool. I think my only suggestion here, Kelly, and this is just a suggestion you can try to see how it works. On the X height here, maybe consider using like a curly bracket instead of the red line. Like the red line comes down and touches a red curly bracket that just sort of designates perhaps that it's this.
Oh, yeah.
It could be being that every other thing is pointing directly like at the thing that it's mentioning. This can be construed as either you're pointing at the main line or the descender line. So yeah, be careful about that. Let's see. These are terms that I will have to research. They very well might be part of like typographical, lingo. I have always been taught that these were that this is your baseline and this is your waistline.
Oh, okay.
But I guess it depends on the source that you found that from. Um, so caps line and descender line, that I think the descender line would definitely be the bottom line of them. But yeah, I think waistline and baseline. Baseline, I'm definitely positive well, actually, yeah, you're pointing to baseline there. Gotcha. Okay, so good. So you've got baseline, but then let's maybe take descender line and have it start at the descender line instead of like right now. It looks like it's starting at the baseline. So then just dropping that down a little bit. No biggie. That's an easy one to fix. Otherwise, I like this page a lot. Looks good. Okay. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Okay, Kelly, did you try at all on this page to let these letter forms, sort of bleed over onto the opposite page?
Um, I did, but I thought it would be weird to let
Yeah,
it
I
bleed
was gonna
through.
say, yeah, totally. I get it. That's why I was asking is because like my first instinct is to say, oh, let's let it, go into that area. But if you tried it and it felt off, that's cool. That's what very much why I'm asking. Let's see. So these letter forms are thinner and more delicate than those used before it, with both allowed ink to bleed on the page without overly distorting the words, and use less ink. They were also more decorative than those modeled directly from the hand. The capital T is a beautiful example of a letter form that is far more ornate than a scribe would write, but Claude styled it in a unique semi-parallel angled serifs. Other key characteristics include the way the top serifs on the lowercase letters curve back into the letter, the feeling of airiness from the generous openings in the letters known as counters, and the tall ascenders. But when in doubt, you can always look for the telltale crossed capital, yeah, the W. That's usually the giveaway on this typeface. Okay. I would say within this block here, Kelly, I would maybe change the center justified to left. I don't know. I always kind of feel it looks a little bit odd when like there's space on the left and right of like the last sentence. So just switching that, it's just a button. It'll be the button directly to the left of the one that you currently have selected in your paragraph panel, and then I'll pop this sentence over so it aligns with the other sentences. But again, I very much like this page here. Let's see, and I want to kind of keep this in mind too for potentially other pages as well, like these sort of decorative, semi-transparent letters in the background. Excellent. Yeah, again, I would say for, again, let's maybe for all these, like they look like they're all the same size. So potentially we could just put like the point size over here on the side.
Okay.
Uh, Great. Yeah, very much like you're doing right here, Kelly. I mean, this could just be this exact same type treatment. I mean, like literally the way you're handling this, with the style and then like the point size in italics. If we stay consistent with that throughout, I think you'll be in great shape. Now, in these cases, we wouldn't list all of the weights. You're already doing that here, but it would just be like the point size potentially. And I would only do that at the very first one because they all appear to be the same size. So it could just be
Oh,
like
okay.
there. But again, I would do that at least once, probably like going way back to the very beginning where you have a header. I would have like, like bold or whatever weight that is, and then the size. I would do it for like one of your quotes. Now, again, you don't have to do it for every single instance. Once you define it once, I think we're good. Same thing for body copy. And if you feel that that's just way too many on the first page, maybe we don't see body copy until a little bit later.
Okay.
But maybe even consider doing it for like this big G. That could be cool. That's again something that's very, very common in type specimen books. I would do it for one of these for sure. Probably for one of these. Definitely for like whatever, like for one of your sort of text assign boxes, I would do as well. It's just looking good. Let's see. I would say that like is this a found hand lettering that you found, Kelly?
No, this one I did myself.
Okay, cool. So when you wait, like do you know what file format that you saved it in?
No, I have to check. I think it's a PNG.
Okay. So it looks like at some point it was converted to a JPEG. And the reason why I'm saying that is because of the artifacting that's present in there. All of these like pixels that are present in here are happening because at some point in the process, whether it was scanned in that way or whether like when you saved it to put into the InDesign document, it was saved as a JPEG. JPEGs are wonderful. It's a wonderful file format for images, like photos that have lots of colors. But it's not a good file format for images with low amounts of color. Now, PNG would be really good, but at some point, it might be a PNG right now, but at some point it was not. It was definitely a JPEG because PNGs don't do this. And not only was it a JPEG, but probably a fairly low quality JPEG as well. And it's possible, like looking at this, it's kind of weird. I almost feel like it's like these three were JPEG at some point. This one was not, otherwise it would have the artifacting as well around that. But if that gives you trouble at all, if like you can't figure out how to fix that, let me know. We can always have you share your screen and I can kind of walk you through that. Or if you want to like just put your original files on the Google Drive, I can, I can pop it in Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever and make that happen as well.
Okay, got it.
So, yeah, fantastic. So let's see here. Let me run back through this one more time. I feel like there's the possibility, certainly not on all pages, or it's just going to become too much. But I think there's a possibility, perhaps on some of these pages, to bring in what you're doing here in some of these other pages in terms of having some like large versions of the type being present at a low opacity in the background. I'm wondering if you try just on like one of these just to see what that will look like. It might be too much, it might totally be too much. And if it is, no worries. Let's see. Maybe on a page like this, maybe there could be a low opacity. It doesn't have to be multiple copies, maybe just like one, maybe a tightly cropped G, or like got the G here, but a letter or part of a letter kind of coming out type of thing. Again, it may be too much. I will say that if it ends up staying the way that it is, just like this, I'd be happy with that, Kelly. It's a really nice design. It's a really nice layout. I'm just kind of throwing things out there to see if it's a possibility for those to work.
Oh yeah, thank you.
And yeah, I would say, definitely, this kind of comes back to what I mentioned earlier. Consider for this form and perhaps this form, borrowing a very large piece of one of these typefaces or one of these letters. Even if it doesn't end up being like this sort of rounded rectangle pillbox shape, it could be, a part of an L that's blown up and really large that kind of comes in, or excuse me, maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be that per se, but I'm just sort of like leaning on like long, vertical letters, or again, this could be a very large version of like one of the serifs from any one of these letters. I think earlier I mentioned it could be, something like this, or the bottom part there, or whatever. I mean, even that pill shape that comes down, it could even be a real big blown up part of like this G that kind of comes off the page. But
Okay.
so that's something to play around with. But I think all in all, Kelly, you've got a beautiful looking project started here. I think the large majority of those suggestions that I gave you will probably only take, a minute or two each to implement. So I think that you could really build on this and extrapolate out these other pages, I think, quite easily. And you're at 10. We need a total of 16, so you're more than halfway there. That's awesome. Are you thinking that this would be the like the back outer cover, like page 16?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on this, Kelly. I think that get a great start to this.
Thank you.
Let's see here. See, Cameron, it looks like you're in class here. Anything that you saw when I was going through that you might suggest to Kelly to consider either tweaking or modifying, or any questions or anything you want to throw out there for Kelly?
Not necessarily really. I just wanted to say, I think, yeah, it looks really good so far. I like how it's not really nice and clean and neat. I really appreciate that a lot. It's very concise, and you have a lot of different fonts that you use a bunch of different fonts as to go, and they all look distinct.
Thank you.
Kelly, as we're sitting here looking at this page, I have one more really minor suggestion.
Yes.
That square bullet point that you had used earlier, do consider using that in place of the circles here, just to get it for consistency's sake, because it was a nice little element. It had a very classic sort of look to it. So yeah, consider that as well. But again, great start to this project. This is going to be an excellent portfolio piece for you by the time you're done.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Let's take a look here then at what we've got here from Cam. Let's see. Looks like it's probably this one. So here, I'm going to do the same thing I did with Kelly's. I'm going to just download this because they display a lot better through preview than they do in the Google Drive preview. So let's see here. I may be able to have this view side by side, but to do so, I think I'll have to take the cover out. So what we'll do right now is we'll take a look at the cover as it sits, and then we can, if I can get the pages to go side by side, then we'll remove that. Yeah, Cam, I like this. I like this a lot. In terms of the composition that you've got going on here on the cover. Let's see.
I think the one thing I see now that I'm looking at is just the spacing between the letters for the future above bold from the ones in black. That's something I want to probably change a little bit and try and fill in more.
Okay. Yeah, you can certainly give that a shot. I think what I would also recommend, this is a small thing, but I would drag a guide in and figure out exactly like where this line is, and I wouldn't let this bottom Futura go past that, because I like how clean of a line we have here. I like we've got a clean line here. Again, obviously this is just one word, so clean line, but this kind of breaks outside of the the grid line.
Yeah,
that would be my only suggestion there. But it mirrors what you're saying there. I mean, it's a bold cover design, both in color and in your typographical arrangement. I think it's fantastic. So this is one version of Futura I am so not familiar with, Cam. What is this one here?
That's a Futura Black. I think it's a modification made on the font that I have on my computer.
Okay, cool. Cool. Because I do feel like when we were looking through the examples last week, I did see one that had that style. And I remember very much in my head thinking, wow, that's not a version of Futura I've ever seen. Um, but you know, obviously you've got that on your computer as well. Yeah, no, I think this cover is fantastic. Yeah, very nice. Let's see if I can do, I'm pretty sure I can do, yeah, 2 pages. I thought so. Let's see, yeah, there we go. Oh, cool. I'm not even having to eliminate the cover. Awesome. All right. Cool. All right. Again, I very much like that you're playing with like some playful typographical arrangements. So there may be the opportunity between these 3 words to use different variations of the font that are perhaps representative of the word itself. You know, maybe there's a heavier version that you can use for the word heavy, or maybe that black version you can use for sexy. I think that would be just a very cool look. And just an opportunity again to kind of do what you already sort of established here on the cover, where you're not afraid to use all these variations in weight and whatnot. If you have a hard time differentiating between bold and heavy, I know that, and clearly you found them as well, there are condensed versions of Futura and then regular versions, and there's bold for both of those. So if you end up having a hard time, like, you know, you can certainly use like the condensed version for the word bold and then like the regular version for the word heavy. So I would not normally, I wouldn't normally be okay with like Futura condensed as body copy. I think it looks great here. I really do. I think this looks fantastic. Consider here on this page a splash of pink. Just having the 1 here, I think it feels a little bit like an outlier. So maybe, you know, maybe one of the words up here, maybe hoop or hell or made, you know, any one of those words could certainly work. It could even be perhaps, if none of those work when you try it, could end up being a few words inside the paragraph, perhaps. But again, I'm going to read through the body copy here, just like I did with Kelly. So in 1927, Paul Renner created the font family known as Futura, heavily inspired by Bauhaus geometric experiments and Bar typeface. Futura was created at Renner's office in Bauer, one of the most influential design firms in the field of typography. The family was mainly based around perfect circles and isosceles triangles, with the weight of the font always remaining consistent no matter the face. Font is noted for being both incredibly functional and easy to use, with its style remaining iconic for decades. It's still widely used to this day, and for good reason. Cool. And what I'm looking at right now, my pause is that I'm looking at the hyphenated experiments, trying to figure out if there's a way for us to get out of that. In addition to that, though, we have we've got a widow down here, which we've got to eliminate. We really can't just have like one word all by itself. So
Yeah.
Now it's entirely possible that, I mean, there's a couple ways obviously to fix this. One could be selecting, and this might also take care of the hyphenation as well. Select the whole body of type and bring it down 1 point in size, or bring it up 1 point in size. I would start with that because that just literally takes a second to make each tweak. If that's still giving you a hard time, you can always start to adjust the kerning. But yeah, that's a couple small tweaks need to happen there for sure. Sure. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. Cool. So this is a nice choice from a design standpoint, changing the weight of the body copy just to potentially show us. So also, like I mentioned on Kelly's, we in a type specimen book, we need to know like what size and weight this is. So this is obviously like Futura condensed, probably condensed medium. So say that in small type off to the side with the font size that it is. Same thing here. Would love to know like what the size and the weight of this is, as well as what the size and the weight of this is. So that can just go in small type. You know, if you want to, you can put a small one up here and small one down here, or you could put them always like in the same spot on the page. That would be fine. I would almost say, let's see here. So I guess what I'm looking at right now is comparing the shapes. Like Futura is famously like the O's are famously based around a circle. So we're good there. I'm just kind of looking at the letter forms otherwise. Because I don't necessarily know that we want an equilateral triangle.
Yeah, because it's an isosceles triangles with the font based around.
Yeah, and I have to admit, it's been well over 20 years since I've had a geometry class. I don't know off the top of my head. I used to know very well, but I don't know what an isosceles triangle looks like off the top of my head. But I suppose we have Google at our fingertips.
Okay, okay. Two sides are on a isosceles triangle, two sides are of equal length.
Okay,
The
cool.
other is longer.
Although actually, I mean, call me crazy. That's looking like, although this to me looks like an equilateral, but let's just try something. No, okay. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so it does look like it's perhaps not an equilateral, which is cool. So that's one small thing to potentially tweak on there, is to maybe end up using an actual isosceles triangle. Let's see. Again, I like the splash of pink. Perhaps we get a second splash of pink by filling in like maybe the shapes. Maybe one shape is solid black, and then one ends up being white like you have it, and then another one ends up being solid pink. And I say like solid pink, like no stroke around it type of thing. That might be another way to work some additional color in there. Because I like it a lot. I would love to see a little bit more, if possible, brought into this. Another way to get more into this would be it doesn't have to be this page per se, because I think we'd have enough color if we filled one of these in with pink. But we could always take a sentence or something like this and make it pink as well, just like the tribute to his quote there. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is awesome. Okay, so yes, again, for sure here, like very small Futura, probably 8 point. Let's get like the weight and the size, like near these. And some of them might have to be alternated up. So that, in fact, maybe they all just go like here, so that we're not like jostling back and forth. But I think that would be a nice touch on this page. Cool.
I'm probably gonna, I might shrink down the images on this page and
Okay.
put like advertising over. I'm still kind of in the middle of this page right now.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Just be careful about stretching the ads, Cam. Like this one here is clearly stretched. Like the letter forms are really distorted. The bodies are really distorted.
Okay.
So, and if you're trying to establish a clear grid with these, I think we can do that if we need to, just by putting a solid color behind one of the ads to get it to be the length that it needs to be. This one feels a little stretched to me as well. Futura doesn't usually have Yeah, this almost looks a little bit like the A's there. Usually there's not that much variation on line weight. That's interesting. Back here, let's. Not really another example. Oh, here, yeah, we have an example here. Yeah, that Futura ad, that Ford ad, something's up with that one.
I'd say, yeah, it might not be Futura. I looked up ads using Futura.
Okay,
So it
gotcha.
might have just been because the car is the Ford
Yeah,
Futura.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't think that's actually Futura. In fact, like even the O ends up having too much variation in its line weight. So,
Yeah, because Futura is usually it's a solid. It's
yeah, it
the
stays
stroke is always
consistent in
solid.
its line weight for sure. Um, cool. Yeah, so I think again, very similar to like what I mentioned with Kelly's, really solid. All of the suggestions are fairly minor in scope. I mean, again, between bumping this in a little bit, potentially adding
And
an extra
basically adding more
splash of
pink,
pink,
yeah.
and then very much like Kelly as well. I want to be able to see those sizes and weights listed as
Definitely,
well.
yeah.
So I think for both of you, a really good idea would be to potentially go back to the type specimen book examples that I had posted those links to last week. Give those a look. In fact, go through all of them and just get a glimpse of how those designers are handling that information. Because I think you'll find some common denominators to how they're being used. That just kind of give it that very specific type specimen book look. But great start to this, Cam. Really nice job. This was another nice thing too. I think that I'd love to see as you extrapolate pages out further, at least one more time in the book too. I love the idea of like the contrasting white page, followed by a black page. This is
That's what
really
I started doing now because
Yeah.
I went through I accidentally submitted the PDF a little bit early. I've been doing that. I've been doing that for all of the pages.
Okay, cool, good. Yes, yeah. Perfect. Okay. All right, Kelly, any comments, questions, concerns, questions, anything for Cam there?
No, I don't have any extra comments. I really like it. I like how you play with the orientation of the type. I like what you have so far.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, great job, guys. Great job. You can see, I think, already that these have a lot of potential to be strong portfolio pieces for you both. All right, cool. So let's dig into some of the things that I put into our class. So I'm here in the week 4 area. Just to kind of give you, I guess, like the basic overview here, we'll jump into the week outline. So there are a few things here, like I want to talk today a little bit about grids in a multi-page document. There is to kind of build on learning more about famous typeface designers. I posted a link to an article about 12 font designers or typographers that you should be aware of. We'll open that up. It's not something I necessarily want to read verbatim, but we'll give that a look because there are some typographers in there that I think are worth discussing. I posted 4 more sample books that we can take a look at, as well as some additional resources that I'll point out to you guys. And then just sort of a reiteration of some of our due dates. So today we're doing the presentation on the 8 pages. Next class, I'd love to see all 16 pages. And that will give us an opportunity to look at them one more time and give you the opportunity then to submit your final versions of those 16 pages a week from today. Okay. But being that this will be really for both of you a big portfolio project, I want to at least get one more look at it before you turn in the final version of it to me. Let's see here. So I mentioned this in the beginning of class, but it's worth repeating again. I pulled, I scanned a while ago the chapter 1 from our textbook and placed it in our resources, but I thought it was worth putting in here because there's just some valuable typographic terms in terms of like anatomy of type. I know we talked about some of this stuff before, but it's worth, I think, specifically for this project, if you wanted to do a breakdown on things, this gives you a good idea of like what these individual things are actually called. Okay. In terms of all of the little pieces, it gets pretty extensive. I mean, the terminology that's used to describe letter forms is almost a science in of itself. So this, I think, if you're looking for additional verbiage to potentially expound upon in your book, I think you can find you know, the correct terminology, I think, within here, as well as just to give you some ideas, I think, in terms of things you could even include in yours. Okay, so so that now exists here. Let's see. This is also something that I'll open up, but we don't necessarily have to spend a ton of time on it. I think this is something I would love for you guys to just spend a few moments, you know, kind of going through and reading. But again, if you, and it doesn't look like either of you are really like in extra need of historical type about your designer, font designer, but there is some additional information here, which is nice. And these are all certainly typographers that you want to be aware of. Most of them are classic and have designed fonts that have been around in some cases for a few centuries. Others are a little bit more modern. We talked about Adrian Frugiera last week. Let's see. So there's Garamond. But I don't necessarily know that offers a ton of extra information in your case, Kelly. I think you've got your bases covered there. There's Ranner. And again, I think that you probably are okay in terms of that as well. Cam, I think you've got that information well covered. Okay. All right, the last thing in here then would be just taking a look at some of these samples. So these are all sort of interesting samples in that they are not necessarily specifically a type specimen book. They're almost a hybrid of a specimen book. And what they all did is they used famous bits of writing to kind of build like a semi type sample book. This will also show you some really nice examples of what I was referring to today in terms of listing the size and the weight along with you know, the accompanying text that you're referring to. These are all relatively short in scope, so we'll look through all of this and have a conversation about them. But so this was done for the 12 Dancing Princesses. And again, all they're really doing is just using the type as the basis for exploring a typeface. Okay, so it's not necessarily that they're definitely not like picture books, for example. But yeah, you can see here are a couple examples of when we see a block of type. We've got accompanying examples of the point size and the weight of the font. Kind of a nice way that these are handled as well. So again, just all type coming from the book, but exploring different weights and different sizes. And in this case, the designer is lining up the weights and sizes like under the accompanying paragraphs. And in this case, they're doing it over the accompanying paragraphs. One of the things I thought about, I really liked about this book, though, was just sort of the simplicity of the grids and how the grid changes from page to page. In some cases, quite dramatically, but there is consistency though in the design, and that it still feels okay, even though again the layout is just dramatically shifting from page to page to page. I think they do a great job of just maintaining a very consistent feel with all of the other elements to pull it together. So yeah, this could certainly be something that you guys both use as reference for how to handle that. Ask for this next. Cool. So this all of the text here comes from Thomas Paine's Common Sense, at least on this page. I thought when I was looking at this earlier that they also had some from the Constitution. Let's see. So yeah, in this case, you're getting a quite like literal stacking of like every time the font changes, they are giving us the exact like weight and size of each of those. And since there is so much variation, obviously we've got a lot of text that accompanies that. But again, this is very much like what you'll see inside of a type specimen book, is this sort of treatment in terms of telling us like what those sizes and weights are. I think it's very, very nice layouts throughout these. But I thought to provide some inspiration for you guys. Not something that has to happen per se, but a very common typographical technique would be to use small caps when we see somebody's name. I think we feel like we talked about small caps earlier this semester. Is that something that we did talk about, or if not, I can be happy to show you guys how to make that happen.
I don't think we talked about it. No.
Here, just in case. While we're looking at this, I'll get Illustrator running because it's literally something that only takes a few moments to do. I'll copy some of this type to do it with. So again, I'm not necessarily suggesting you guys have to approach it this way, where we've got like literally a column on each of these pages that list those. Although it certainly could happen that way, but again, a really nice example of how to handle those little aside descriptors. So for small caps, it is literally something that you can do with your character panel. So in my case, that would actually be, I am in Illustrator here, so that's going to be with my properties inspector. Okay, so you would select what you want to be small caps. And let's see here. If I click on the word character, there we go. In the character panel, it's the second icon right here. This will give you what's called small caps. So the capital letters are still the same height as an actual capital letter, but all of the lowercase letters are converted to a capital, but they are the same height. They have the same baseline and waistline, essentially the X height as the as the rest there. Not saying that this has to happen, but oftentimes you'll find that in addition, it's like bolded or italicized or something along those lines. So yeah, that's small caps in action. So I broke the bold option. All right. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we've got Bodini. And I wish, I don't know what letter forms they are using to create this. I certainly wish I did. I think it's a beautiful example of like overlaying letter forms to create a design. And again, you're seeing examples here of what I'm referring to in terms of weight and size. And similarly to the fonts that you guys chose, I mean, Boolean's got a lot of variation. But this is cool how then, like in a page like this, and obviously these two pages we butt up against one another, but I love how they brought that form that we saw in the very beginning into the background, then to just sort of add a little bit of life to a page like this. There's some of these techniques as well, putting the punctuation in, but backing it with with a very, very large like ampersand, or in the case of the question mark and exclamation point. A comparison of the essentially the non-italics and the italics. I thought that was a very, very nice contrast right there. And again, I love that how they're just sort of like reintroducing that form they began with on the very, very beginning. This is actually a nice way to handle these long lists of type as well. Left aligning one or right aligning another. Might be interesting actually if this were the exact opposite, if this one were right aligned and this one were left aligned, so that when they butted up against one another, they had a nice even, even lines in the areas that they were close to each other. That could be very, very cool look. And I think I've got one more open here at Garamond. Sure what that little form is in there. That's a zoom in. That is a fine. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure what that little letter form is there. I don't know, Kelly, is that something like when you were researching Garamond, does that have some special like characters that can be made with keyboard shortcuts?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay. Some fonts do. They've got a number of them. I mean, I would say it's far less than the ones that do, but it's not uncommon for certain keyboard shortcuts to generate what are called special characters for certain fonts. So that's something to certainly take a look at. This is a really cool look, kind of working between like the script versions of the font and the standard versions. I think that's really, really nice way to open up those names as well as the typography there. Yeah, again, some of the small treatment. I love like the italicized above here. You know what? I think there are some special characters. Looking at these, like these look like alternate. And that might be something, Kelly, that you might have to Google to find out what the keyboard shortcuts are for those. But it does look like there are some alternates. Looks like there's some alternate cues. Looks like there are some alternate like caps here as well. Let's see. Yeah, there's a bunch of alternate italics. So these would be things that would come up via keyboard shortcuts. And it can be different per letter. So that could just literally be something where you're just researching and saying like Garamond alternates. Let's see, I don't want alternatives, I want alternate. There we go, keyboard codes. Here we go. So they're showing us here like what some of those would be. Well, okay, hang on. I don't know that this is specific to Garamond, so I want to be careful about what I'm showing you here. I don't know, Kelly. I haven't read that article, but it may actually just be holding down the Alt key and then finding which keys on the keyboard to actually type. But yeah, then there are symbol codes as well for oftentimes for a number of fonts. Let's see here. Like these, for example, these are relatively common alternates. So this would be, these are literally like 5 key shortcuts where you're holding on the Alt key and then typing like literally a 0, 1, 9, 3. There's actually quite extensive lists of alternates, but not all fonts. There we go. Some others. Here are some others still. There we go. Here's some good charts. So yeah, these are now, again, not all fonts have these. But I would imagine that Garamond is fairly robust and probably has many. Shoot, I don't want to be on Pinterest for this. But these are all like little symbols that you can generate with your keyboard, holding on like the Alt key and then those number combinations. So it's it is entirely possible that that little like icon that we saw there was created with via a keyboard shortcut. Let's see, where the heck was I? Yeah, even this is sort of an interesting way to just sort of handle a block of type, just sort of showing examples. Regular versus italics versus semi-bold. Not that it has to be the same letter over and over again, you know, but it certainly is an interesting way of doing it. You know, right down to even this, like they're still showing like what the name and the size that is. So it's a huge number of 300 on that, but I like that they're doing that. Cool. So hopefully it gives you guys just some ideas of how to handle that type. For Thursday, definitely want to see some examples of that in your books. And if you're kind of debating between how to handle that information, if you want to do it in a few different styles and then show it to us on Thursday, obviously give you some feedback and give you a direction on which route to go. All right, cool. Something I put in here as well. I don't know that you guys will need it for this assignment. It's probably something though that we'll dig into a little bit more on the next assignment, because the next assignment is really grid heavy. I did find a digital copy of the Making the Grid textbook that I added here. It's kind of a big PDF. It's like 120 pages. But I think I'll actually end up moving that into our week 5 module. I think that this is probably more than enough stuff for you guys at this point. All right. Cool. Guys, in terms of material to share with you, that's really for today. That's it. I'm going to give you guys the rest of the class time to work on these. Not that I think that what you guys are going to be doing over the next couple of days I don't think it's hard, but it certainly is time consuming, right? I mean, it's going to take you some time to flush out those other pages to get to a total of 16. So I think the best way for us to go here is for me just to give you guys the time to work. As always, I will hang out for a while in case you guys have some questions. But again, and it's up to you guys. I think usually you guys end up taking off. That's certainly fine. But if you do take off and you end up having questions between now and Thursday, please reach out to me via email. Just let me know if you need something, running into technical issues or anything at all like that. Anything I can help out with.
So yeah, have all 16 draft pages done by Thursday?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's good.
Yep. And what we'll do then, Cam, again, is we'll look at them one more time and give you one more time to make adjustments on them. I think I don't want you to just extrapolate all like the rest of those 8 out and then not have an opportunity to get feedback on it. I think it sets you guys up better to succeed grade wise if you can get some feedback first and an opportunity to make some other tweaks.
Sounds good.
Well, I think again, you guys did a really solid foundation. Maybe before making those additional pages, figure out how you want to handle the type descriptions and maybe make those few tweaks that we talked about today. Because I think in some cases, you can probably generate some of those subsequent page groupings by duplicating some you already have and just making tweaks. And if you make your revisions first, and then you duplicate those, that's nice because then you don't necessarily have to go back and make small tweaks on multiple spreads. Cool, guys. Any questions at all? About what the expectations are for Thursday?
No questions.
All right. What I will do is I'm going to stop the recording and get the recording published up to YouTube, just because there's a lot of feedback in there that I gave you guys. Here in week 4, it usually takes about 20 minutes for that to happen. But here in the week 4 area where it says Zoom link to be announced, I'll put the the YouTube link in there. Okay? In fact, that's really what that should say is YouTube link. So again, give me about 20 minutes or so on that. Sometimes this is not the longest recording, so maybe this one will go a little bit faster, but that's where I will put it. So if you're looking for that and want to review it, that's where you'll be able to find it. So yeah, I'm going to stop that recording at the very least now. Let's see.